after that's
Okay,
all
this
vertebral
is
column.
for the vertebral column practical.
Okay, this is the vertebral column. Okay, and that is a major structure for body support, for movement, for protecting the spinal cord, and attached then to our ribs for our thorax. Okay, now as we go in, we have the sensory nerves and the motor nerves, and they are spinal nerves as they come off the spinal cord. And so between the vertebrae there is an opening which then is called the intervertebral foramen, or foramina. And so these spinal nerves are coming off of these openings. And so when they're going from the body to the brain, they would be called sensory nerves, and when they're going the opposite way, then they are called motor nerves. Now we got to do a little imagination between the vertebrae. There is a cartilage which is called the intervertebral disc, and that is made up of two different types of cartilage: an outer cartilage which is hard, which is called the annulus fibrosus, and then an inner, softer, pulpy type cartilage which is called the nucleus pulposus, and that's on the inside. And those cartilages then give us the ability to move that vertebra slightly, to give us flexibility of movement as we move our body. There are four curves in the body. The upper curve is then the cervical curve, and that then is convex. The second curve down is the thoracic curve, and that curve then is concave. The third curve down is then the lumbar curve. Again, that is convex. And the last curve then is the sacral curve, which again is concave. So those are the major curves of the vertebral column, and that increases the strength of the vertebral column. It gives a shock absorber and enables us to maintain an upright position as humans. When we go with an individual vertebra, just one vertebra by itself, okay, the body of the vertebra is this anterior portion, and that's what then gives the support. So one vertebra, our body, will sit on top of the other body, and it gives the body support. Now we will form a vertebral arch, and this tissue that is projecting posteriorly from the body is called a pedicel, and then it will project a little bit posterior and medially, which is then the lamina. And between the two, they've formed this vertebral arch or neural arch. And within it then is going to be the vertebral foramen, and that then is where the spinal cord is going to go through that vertebral foramen as it goes then off the medulla all the way down to the cauda equina. Also, we attach going laterally posteriorly are called the transverse process, and these are points of attachment. In the thorax, they're a point of attachment for the ribs. The rest of the body are point of attachments for ligaments and tendons and muscles all the way through. Projecting posteriorly then is a spinous process. Likewise, that's point of attachment. And actually the spinous process helps us from collapsing over posteriorly, because they will provide some base there to help us maintain our upright our posture. Now we have the superior articular process, which projects superiorly, and then the inferior articular process are what's also called facets, which project posteriorly, and they help connect one vertebra to another vertebra. And so when your back gets a little bit out of alignment, the chiropractor is going to snap them all back in place, and it feels really good. The upper region of the neck then is the cervical region, and these are numbered 1 through 7. So you end up with C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, C7. So these 7 vertebrae then are the cervical vertebrae that make up the neck. C1 is also called the atlas because that then attaches then to the skull, to the occipital condyles of the skull, and that connection allows the head to go up and down. C2 is called the axis, and it has this projection which is called a dens. And that dens end of the atlas and of the axis and atlas allows us to rotate our head back and forth to give us a side movement. Also, the spinous process and the cervical are bifid. They are split into two. And C7 then is bigger than the rest, and that is called the vertebral prominence, and that is a guidepost in our massage therapy of working on the skull. The second region down is the thorax region, and they start with T1 and they end up down here at T12. And these then will attach them to the ribs of the thorax. And with that, we will see some facets because the heads of the ribs will attach into the facets here that are in the body of the thoracic vertebrae. The next are the lower five, then are the lumbar, and they again going from L1 through L5 as you go from superior to inferior. The last part down here then is the sacrum. Sacrum is a lot different than the others because the bones now have been fused, and there are 5 fused bones. The base of the sacrum is on the superior border. The apex of the sacrum then is on the inferior border. Now we end up with the superior articular facet. This is a superior articular facet which fits into the inferior articular facets of L5. So this then is the superior articular facet. Now, because they are fused, there are some vestigial lines here that indicate that they used to be separate vertebrae back in history. And so these then are the transverse lines. Now, as the spinal nerves come down, they run through that canal, through the sacral canal, and as the spinal nerves will start flaring out through the sacral canal. When they got to the lower part, to the inferior part, this then is called the sacrocornu, and then on the lateral side, then it's the sacrohiatus. Did I goof that up? Sorry. Okay, the auricular surface then is the lateral surface, and then there is where the spinous process have connected. It forms a medial sacral crest. Where the transverse process have connected, they form a lateral sacral crest. And then where there are openings on the posterior side, these are the posterior sacral foramina, again for the spinal nerves to come out. And on the front side then would be the anterior sacral foramina for them to come out on this side. Now this doesn't have the coccyx bone, this is our tailbone, and our coccyx region is a vestigial area, and it consists of either 3 or 4, and it has no function in the human. Okay.
Yay.